All right, good afternoon. Now I'd like to bring the regular afternoon meeting of Township of Langley Council to order. And the first item is adoption and receipt of the agenda items. I'd like to add one item in other business, and that would be to receive item 8 of the September 28th distribution list. So with that addition, I would ask for a motion. Councillor Long, seconder. Councillor Arneson. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Next item is adoption of the minutes of the regular afternoon council meeting of September the 18th. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley, seconder. Councillor Arneson. Any errors or omissions? See none. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Next item is to move into special closed for the items on the agenda and on table. Is there anything else? Have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. We now go into special closed. Thank you. Good afternoon. Now reconvene the regular afternoon meeting of Township of Langley Council. And the next item on the agenda are presentations. And the first presentation is D1. And it's the Partnership for Water Sustainability in BC, presentation of the champion supporter recognition. And I'll turn your mic on there. There we are. Welcome here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Kim Stevens, and I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Water Sustainability. And I am accompanied by my colleague, Ted Vanagulik, who is the President. And we have something to give to you today. It's a framed letter of recognition. And in terms of getting organized here, part of why we're here is to really honor, to recognize, and to celebrate the good work that the Township of Langley has done over many years. And from our perspective, you are one of our champion supporters. And so I'm going to ask the clerk to hand out this story. Thank you. Because not only are we going to give you the kind of the formal recognition, but we've gone the next step, which is to actually tell your story. And really, this is the story of green infrastructure innovation in the Township of Langley over more than a decade. And and we all learn from stories. That's the headline there. And so, in terms of the partnership's role in working with local government, is to tell those stories so that others will learn from what their peers are doing. And really, when we look at what you've accomplished through your various iterations of your neighborhoods, you've made that breakthrough in terms of moving from understanding information to implementation that may otherwise hold you back. So, in terms of kind of having kind of whetted your appetite by giving you the document, and hoping that you will have time to listen to me now while you're reading it. But in terms of the partnership, well, the partnership originated as an intergovernmental partnership, and in 2010 we morphed from the partnership into the partnership, a legal entity. And so, as you can see from the presentation, our mission really is developing tools, talent, and focusing on outcomes rather, and. So we do a number of things, producing what we call these watershed case profiles. I think some of you get the weekly e-blasts. You're nodding your head. I guess you do read them. Yeah, you read them. Okay, good. And so it's really getting the story out about the good work that people in local government are doing. That's really how we got going. And as a partnership, we serve as a bridge between province, local government, and also the community. And so you'll see on that slide, I've highlighted the Georgia Basin Interregional Education Initiative. I will describe that very briefly in that your green infrastructure experience is informing what others do, because now when we tell the story, we say, do you know what Langley's been doing? And they've been doing it for a long time. And so in terms of the Interregional Education Initiative, well, it's 5 years since we formally launched it. We have, at a regional level, we have the 5 regional districts, 5 regional boards representing 75% of the population of British Columbia. So it's that sharing and learning process to build capacity. And our goal, a program goal, is that all local governments would understand how to achieve what we're branding as sustainable watershed systems through asset management. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes, because I've got to keep moving here. So in terms of we often talk about the BC process being what, so what, now what, then what. Now, what's really interesting, if I reflect on my 40-year career in engineering, is that communities and professionals, we often have a lot of trouble just getting from the what to the so what do we do. But what's interesting about Langley in terms of green infrastructure and your various neighborhoods that you've developed over the last 10 plus years is that you've actually gone the cycle multiple times. And if you go back to what is the issue? Well, the issue is the form of land development. Well, it impacts how water is used, how water runs off the land, and how water reaches the stream. So if you keep those key thoughts in your mind, so what are we going to do about it in terms of, correcting what went wrong in the past? Well, design with nature. And, if you have that shift in philosophy, which has taken place here, then you're into, establishing precedents. And I think that's what's really, from an outsider's perspective, is really quite exciting about how the Township of Langley in successive neighborhoods over the last decade plus have learned from experience, have established precedents, replicated and done better, and then you're on this continuous improvement cycle. So that's quite a story for others in local government to hear, the fact that you've done some good stuff. So, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So in terms of capturing what I would call the new normal in terms of your subdivision, your neighborhood, your community design, the designing with nature, it's funny, it comes down to a picture of a rain garden. And I think it's so significant that, the blue link, as Langley Township calls them, has become symbolic of the transformational change which has taken root in the township. And that's your new drainage standard. So other than on your arterial roads, Langley does not have the conventional curb and gutter that everybody else has transitioning away from. You've made that move. So that's a pretty significant and symbolic transformation in what you do. So when you read that document of the Green Infrastructure Innovation Story of Langley Township, there's lots of quotable quotes there because I interviewed various people. And I had, for the purposes of today, I thought I have to pick one quote which I can share with you. And I think this one really caught it for me in terms of moving from that last image of the rain garden to Dave Cocking and his comment about looking at his career perspective here at Langley to be able to say the infrastructure we build today is integrated. We recognize that each part is a component of the whole. We strive to make all the parts work together without compromising any component. Working together, we are solving community design issues. I mean, it sounds so straightforward, and there are so many in other communities who are struggling to achieve that philosophy. So kudos to the Township of Langley for walking the talk. And in my last two slides here, picking up what I said at the very beginning when I showed that slide of the Georgia Basin Interregional Education Initiative, sustainable watershed systems through asset management, the new paradigm which I'm introducing to you today, and if you've been reading all those e-blasts over the past little while, you've heard it, watersheds as infrastructure assets. So whenever I'm making presentations to regional boards or councils, I make the point to them, which is, if you know that in terms of your traditional, your core infrastructure, your water, your sewer, your roads, if we're faced with this infrastructure deficit, the unfunded liability, you can't afford to replace the core services. Why, oh, why would you take on another debt called drainage? And so your proactive approach has actually positioned you quite well for what we're calling, watersheds as infrastructure assets. And I think the fact that you're in Langley Township, you're particularly sensitive to groundwater because your water supply. I think that probably, without you realizing it, probably has influenced your thinking that you already are on that track of seeing things more of a system than other places where they just don't think about once the water goes down, where it's moving laterally in that shallow horizontal layer, it's going down deep. And what we're trying to do is educate people to think of those different pathways as being the infrastructure assets, how water reaches the streams and the aquifers, and those are your water balance services. So what does local government do? You provide services. So water balance services is part of what you do. Again, for a quick presentation like this, it's hard to select what's the appropriate image for the tools that the partnership develops so that our partners can use them. And one of the tools that you're involved in is the Water Balance Express. And I thought, I just can't show you a screenshot of a computer screen, can I? So I thought I would have this quotable quote from Julie Wilson of UBC to put it all in context, because when you do read the green infrastructure innovation story that you've got before you, towards the end, there's a little section called Going Beyond the Staff. Because I've talked to your staff, I can sort of see how that ethic is embedded, and to have the lasting change in terms of designing with nature really does depend on community engagement. And so this is one of the tools to get the homeowners engaged in terms of their understanding of what it means to slow, sink, and spread runoff. So I think if you just reflect on that quote from Julie about, hey, if you go to Google Map or Google Earth and you recreate your yard and you play with the Lego blocks and you can see the impact or the benefits of the choices you make on how water leaves your site. And at this point, I'm going to call my colleague Ted Vanagulik up, and I'm going to ask Mr. Mayor if he would come forward so we can actually present you and with the plaque. And
thank you very much. And I'd also recognize, and you had one of our staff members on your presentation, that there's many staff members that have made this happen, and council make the policy, and we approve the policies, and is our wonderful staff that carry this out, and certainly want to recognize the work that they've done, and I know some of them are here, and thank you very much. And we also got a plaque at UBCM, honorable mention for our work in this area, so thank you.
You want to get Ted first?
Sure.
Thank you very much. There you go.
Did it do anything or just?
Did you see it?
I trust it? That it's,
Oh, there it is.
okay. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
They have their eyes open, do they?
Yeah.
Have a stand next to you. Okay. Hold the pose. I'm going to stand next to you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I was just wondering. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Robin. I'll send it to you. Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Okay, and the next presentation is Shakeout and the Emergency Preparedness Fair. I see Ms. Ginger Sherlock is here to provide us with that presentation. Welcome here.
Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. Good day. I'm here to share 2 upcoming events with you and to invite council and the public to participate. So the first event to share with you is the Earthquake Simulator is coming again to Langley. Thanks to the Insurance Bureau of Canada and Kwantlen Polytech University, key partners for this year's event. It is Saturday, October 14th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can ride the earthquake simulator that actually simulates a magnitude 8 earthquake to experience what it actually feels like. You can meet first responders. We have RCMP, fire, search and rescue, and other first responder agencies going to be there. You can talk to subject matter experts. We have somebody coming, a seismologist, so that you can actually ask about what does that mean to Langley regarding tsunamis, or do we have to deal with other faults in the region, that sort of questions, liquefaction. Get it from the expert, get your answers. And you can enter to win a family emergency kit as well. So that'll be great. And we also have 2 personal preparedness sessions that you can sign up for and go learn how to keep your family safe. Our second event to share with you is communities across the province will be participating in the yearly Earthquake Shakeout. Whoops, went backwards. So I don't know why it's doing that, but there we go. It's the Great BC Earthquake Drill, known as Shakeout. The township staff will be counted among the millions, as we do every year, to participate on October 19th at 10:19 a.m. Everyone needs to drop to the ground, take cover, and hold on for 60 seconds. Now go forward. Now go forward. No, of course not. Next. There we go. And there's a picture of somebody showing you how it's done. We cannot predict when an earthquake will occur, except for, now I can tell you, in less than 2 weeks, we actually do have an earthquake coming to Langley. But thank you for your commitment. These events are here to help our community be ready and resilient. Everyone needs to do their part to live prepared. So thank you, and see you under the desk on October 19th.
Thank you. October the 19th. I'll write that down. 19 desk. You got it. Okay, thank you. All right, the next presentation we have from staff is the Township of Langley Public Spaces Waste Management Program. Welcome here. While you're setting up, this is the plaque we got for honorable mention, and it's a recognition of the Municipal Green Initiative Fund based on a cost savings reinvestment strategy to support corporate and community projects that will reduce the township's long-term GHG emissions despite rapid population growth and increased demand for services. So I know those members of staff are here. I'd like to show it off, and thank you very much, Ryan and your group. All right.
Great. Well, good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Tess Rouse, and I'm a Sustainability Specialist here in the Engineering Division at the Township of Langley. Today I'm here to present to you the finalized Public Spaces Waste Management Program and to seek your approval on the recommendations provided in your report with the package that you received. So the Township is a leader in waste management on many fronts. In fact, in the first 6 months of the new residential CART program, our garbage tonnage was the lowest it's been in the history of our curbside collection program. The Township is also known for having one of the most robust corporate recycling programs in the region, with it being in practice for over a decade in all Township facilities. Yet when we look at our public spaces, on our roads, in our parks and trails, there are no diversion options. Everything goes to the landfill. So today when we talk about the new Public Spaces program, please consider that this is not only a gap in our current waste diversion practices, but it's also an opportunity for the Township to be a regional leader in waste management. So during the presentation, I will speak to the drivers of the program, why it's important and why we're making changes. Next, I'll talk about the development and methodology into the program components, the details of the exciting new program, what the financial implications are, and then we'll end with questions and discussion. So in April of 2015, Council endorsed the litter and illegal waste management strategy, including a recommendation for staff to develop a public spaces waste management program. Also, the lack of diversion practices in township public spaces puts us out of direct compliance with Metro Vancouver material bans under their tipping fee and solid waste disposal bylaw. These banned and prohibited materials include items such as pet waste, recyclable materials such as paper, glass, and plastics, as well as food scraps. Several township loads have been rejected at the transfer station due to the high amount of dog waste contained in our garbage loads. The Metro Vancouver bylaw states that loads must be under a 5% pet waste threshold. So the township will face additional surcharges at waste disposal sites and may be refused access to local transfer stations for not complying with these banned material bylaws. Also, as one of the region's local municipalities, we have committed to support Metro Vancouver in its waste diversion target of 80% by 2020, and therefore diverting this recyclable material out of our public spaces streams will be helping to support that goal. Also, when we put materials in the landfill, they off-gas into the atmosphere. In particular, dog waste, a sewage, has a high methane content and directly impacts our climate. The township is a member of the Partners for Climate Protection and has many greenhouse gas reduction targets outlined in our sustainability charter and our official community plan. Also, consistency. So this new program would bring consistency to our other waste diversion practices. Curbside, residents have the option to divert their food scraps as well as recyclable materials. Every Langley school, from elementary, middle, all the way to high school, has a robust recycling program as well, where students are learning these practices. And as I already mentioned, in our corporate facilities, we have this, but again, not in public spaces. So lastly, leadership, so maybe most importantly. We would not be the first municipality to install multi-stream receptacles in our public spaces, but by following this new program, we would be one of the first to separate dog waste out of our garbage stream on this large of a scale. So we'll go into this in a bit more detail later in the presentation, but pet waste, for your knowledge, is prohibited from Metro Vancouver landfills and transfer stations, as it's a major contributor to greenhouse gases and poses a health risk to staff. So only small amounts are acceptable, again, under that 5% threshold in household garbages. Dog waste collected through the township's new public spaces waste management program will be kept out of the landfill and instead brought to the wastewater treatment facility to be processed as sewage. And the gases released from the processing of this sewage are captured and used as energy to run the wastewater treatment facility. So the program was developed over 4 phases, with the 5th phase being the full-scale rollout. Phase 1 consisted of looking at existing operations, in particular how waste was generated and managed in township public spaces, so parks, on roads, and in trails. Regional best practices were also considered in Phase 1. During Phase 2, staff conducted a number of field tests with the goal of identifying the preferred receptacle model and signage to be used in the township. Field tests were conducted testing 3 different bin types in various communities throughout the township over a 9-week period. A preferred multi-stream receptacle was identified from the field tests, and on a neighborhood scale it was tested in Phase 3. So we're now at Phase 4 with a finalized program presenting to you guys tonight. So if endorsed by Council, Phase 5 would consist of a full-scale rollout to the rest of the township. So we'll just touch a little bit briefly on some of those stages. The first is starting with best practices. So best practices research was conducted in Phase 1. There are a total of 6 jurisdictions on the screen, but a more exhaustive list is in your report under Attachment B. So as you can see from the slide, many jurisdictions already have multi-stream receptacles installed in their public spaces. Metro Vancouver is one of the only jurisdictions that actually separates dog waste from the garbage stream, but a number of local municipalities are also considering this for their programs in the near future. The township actually has over 700 waste receptacles on our roads and in our parks and trails. There are currently no options for compost diversion, paper recycling, and where present, recycling of plastics is limited to refundable beverage containers at best. Several concerns were noted with the existing receptacles in staff interviews in Phase 1. Specifically, the susceptibility of our current infrastructure to illegal dumping, as the deposit hole is very large, poor ergonomics for servicing, vandalism, and the tendency for litter to accumulate from overflowing bins. There are also a variety of garbage receptacles, as you can see from the slide. The predominant garbage receptacle is pictured in the top circular photo there. So staff conducted a number of waste characterization studies on the existing garbage receptacles and found that on average, our garbage is comprised of 23% recyclable material, 51% dog waste, maybe I'll repeat that, 51% dog waste, and that's an average. It has been found to be much higher in some areas. 12% organics or compost, so food scraps, food soiled paper products, and really only 15% of it was actually materials we'd classify as garbage. So from this composition, we can clearly see that we are out of compliance with Metro Vancouver material bylaws, but also there's quite a large opportunity here for waste diversion. So after the preferred multi-stream receptacle was chosen, staff undertook a pilot on a much larger scale. So we actually installed 44 of these multi-stream receptacles in the community of Walnut Grove over a 5-month period from April until this September. We placed them in areas such as 88th Avenue, Walnut Grove Community Park, really high-use areas. To gauge the success of the pilot, detailed waste and visual audits were conducted, along with analysis of public feedback. So this is a photo of all the recycling that was captured from the multi-stream bins in only 7 days. So the program at full scale would have over 500 multi-stream bins, leading to a pile 13 times this size, again, in only 1 week. So currently, right now, with our existing program with only waste, all of these recyclable materials are going into the garbage. And maybe even more shocking, this is a photo of the dog waste that was captured by the new multi-stream bins, again, in only 7 days. So with a separate stream, dog waste is collected by a contractor and again disposed as sewage at the wastewater treatment facility. And this neighborhood pilot confirmed that with the new receptacles, the township does come into compliance with the 5% pet waste threshold that Metro Vancouver has. So compared to the waste audits conducted in phase 1, to the amount of dog waste in the garbage stream has actually decreased by 93% because of the diversion. So we've received quite a few comments from the public to date about the neighborhood pilot. The majority of comments have been positive, including some up on the screen here. This is the best thing the township has done with waste. They're very tasteful in appearance. These bins seem to reduce litter in the neighborhood. And an overwhelming amount of comments were made from residents actually asking for the receptacles to be brought to other neighborhoods in the township. We only received some complaints regarding the replacement of one receptacle outside the Forest Hills neighborhood, as it was placed adjacent to the neighborhood sign. So in this case, placement of the bin was restricted due to sightlines and safety concerns, but was deemed necessary due to ongoing complaints about litter in the area from an adjacent bus stop. So if supported by council for full-scale rollout, staff would continue to select the most appropriate placement of these receptacles. So now onto the exciting stuff, the new program. So I'm going to walk you through what the new receptacle model looks like, the stream combinations and signage, changes to our collection system, possible levies to offset some of the costs, and the subdivision and development servicing bylaw and park design standards. So pictured here is a design drawing of the multi-stream receptacle that we were able to test in the field test in phase 2 and the neighborhood pilot in phase 3. This receptacle model was the best choice for the township due to ease of maintenance and collection, functionality, ease of use to residents, sorting success, feedback from public and staff, and durability. As you can see from the screen, there are a variety of different stream combinations dependent on where the bins are actually placed. So starting from the left, the standard 3-stream bin, which would be comprised of dog waste, garbage, and recycling, would be the predominant receptacle that would be seen throughout the township. In the middle, we have a bin comprised of garbage, compost, and recycling streams. This bin would be placed in areas where there's high food consumption and perhaps dogs are prohibited or don't frequent that often, like picnic shelters, spray parks, etc. And then we have a 4-stream model where there's dog waste, garbage, compost, and recycling. And then also to note, we tested signage during the field test and the neighborhood pilot. The bins that were in the neighborhood pilot were featured design 1, so it's a full-scale body wrap where the streams are color-coded. We found very good success with this design, very good sorting from the public, low contamination. However, staff have proposed that going forward, we test design 2 out, which is a reduced wrapping. This is due to the fact that installation is cheaper because there is less vinyl wrapping. Also, maintenance costs are reduced due to the vandalism that was occurring at some of the vinyl. And then also designed to matches more with our park and streetscape furniture aesthetics. So due to the multi-stream nature of the public waste receptacles, the new public waste receptacles, new multi-stream collection vehicles will need to be procured as part of the full-scale rollout. Similar to curbside waste and recycling, different trucks pick up different types of material. To offset ongoing operating costs to manage the respective waste materials generated in public spaces by both dogs and park events, a levy for adding to the cost of dog licenses, outdoor sporting tournaments, and picnic shelter rentals will be reviewed by staff for the 2018 fees and charges bylaw to be considered by Council. So the Township annually issues approximately 15,000 dog licenses per year, 300 picnic shelter rentals, and 13,700 miscellaneous field rentals. One of the report recommendations in front of you tonight is for staff to update the receptacle model in the subdivision and development servicing bylaw and park design standards. So that new residential areas and park facilities will be designed and built with the new multi-stream receptacles. The predominant receptacle currently used throughout the township costs upwards of $1,800 per unit, compared to the new multi-stream receptacle, which costs approximately $1,400 per unit. So it's a cost savings of approximately 22%. Okay, so for a 5-year rollout, should Council approve the necessary capital budget required to install the new multi-stream receptacles township-wide, the phased full-scale implementation would begin in 2018 and be completed throughout 2022. So first, to test the reduced vinyl wrapping design on a statistically significant scale, the completion of the Walnut Grove neighborhood was chosen for 2018. Next, in Willoughby was chosen as the next neighborhood to complete in 2019 due to its expansive and ongoing development. With an update to the subdivision and development servicing bylaw, the new multi-stream receptacles will be installed throughout Willoughby by developers, and therefore, to ensure consistency, it would be most beneficial to ensure we replace the existing infrastructure in this neighborhood first. Then, to allow for efficient collection and maintenance of the new multi-stream bins, staff have recommended to cluster expansion in adjacent communities, as this will allow for a more efficient routing of collection vehicles and staff time. So you can see a very counterclockwise order to full-scale implementation. Okay, and getting to the end here, the financial implications of the new program. So the capital costs will average $350,000 per year for 5 years. This will cover the cost to replace all existing garbage infrastructure and to procure the 2 new multi-stream collection vehicles needed. The estimated operating impacts will be $245,000 per year, which will be for the addition of 2 temporary full-time staff, the rental costs for 2 multi-stream collection vehicles, and increases to collection and disposal costs. Also, if directed by Council, staff will bring forward potential cost offsets from various levies and the revenue generated from auctioning or recycling off the existing garbage infrastructure. There is also a potential to offset program costs through the proposed Recycle BC Streetscape incentive. So in closing, the recommendations in the report are as follows: that Council directs staff to bring forward the necessary budget requests for implementation of the full-scale program as part of the future year's budget process, and that Council directs staff to update the subdivision and development servicing bylaw and relevant park design standards. And lastly, that Council directs staff to bring forward the proposed levies to be added to the current dog licensing fees, outdoor sport tournaments, and picnic shelter rentals to assist with offsetting the operating costs of managing the waste generated as part of the 2018 fees and charges bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I have some questions from Council. Council Sparrow.
Thank you. Mine wasn't so much a question, but just a comment. I live in Walnut Grove, and so I was one of the lucky ones to get to experience the pilot. And I have to say, as someone who runs in the area as well, it was really nice to see the bins, like, neat and tidy. And the previous bins in a lot of the areas were the ones at bus stops, so just the very small garbage cans. And oftentimes they were overflowing, and they would be, out on the ground, or people would put recyclables next to the garbage cans because they felt bad putting it in the garbage can. And so it was a lot more of a mess. So it was very nice to see it looking tidy, and to be able to recycle and put your dog waste away. And my kids enjoyed using it, like deciding what bin to put things in. So yeah, I just wanted to comment. I think also the addition of, there was a few extra ones I think added where there wasn't garbage cans previous, and it was nice to be able to have something close by that you could see a garbage can. They were very bright and easy to spot from quite a far away too. So if your dog happened to do their business there, you could look and see, oh, it's not that far of a walk, or I'll turn that way and go down that road and put it away properly. So yeah, I just want to say I'm excited to see it going out throughout the rest of Walnut Grove and then throughout the rest of the township. I think it'll be really well received, and I certainly appreciate all the work that staff has done with it, and I'm excited to see it implemented. Thank you.
Great feedback.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley.
Thanks, Tess. That was a really great report, and I appreciate all the information we received ahead of time. The program's working for sure. I walk a lot in Walnut Grove, and I'm seeing a lot less dog waste on the trails and pathways and parks than I used to see. But I have a couple questions about the dog waste bags that are being collected. In that photo you showed, there was some were obviously compostable bags, some were just a supermarket plastic bag full of dog waste. To be sent into the stream for processing, do those bags need to all be opened? And because the plastic can't go into that stream, right?
I was going to show a video, but I decided not to. So the reason that disposal costs are increasing by as much as they are is due to the fact that the dog waste is separated, because the private contractor that we have actually has to manually cut open those bags and separate the dog waste from the bags. The bags are discarded as garbage in the landfill, and then the actual dog sewage is brought to the wastewater treatment facility. Even regardless if bags are compostable and they go in the landfill, once they're put into a black garbage bag, no air actually gets at them, so they don't compost anyway. So if you're buying them, don't waste your money on that, I guess. Using a normal supermarket bag is just fine. So
the bags that we provide in our parks, are they compostable, and can those go into the stream as is?
No, so even if they're compostable, they still can't go to the wastewater treatment facility.
Everything has to be opened regardless.
Exactly, yeah.
Holy cow.
So we're hoping that in the future there will be, advances in technology where a machine could do this, or maybe a new bag comes out that the treatment facility could accept, but at this point there's not.
People who are doing the actual cutting are waiting for that technology to come as well. The number obviously is shocking. 51% is dog waste. That's a significant number. When you look at the expense for dog licensing in the municipality, it's $24 a dog on average. It seems to me that that is maybe a little low, and I'm glad to see that that's coming in as part of the review. So with that licensing fee, and maybe this is more a question for Ms. Sinclair in finance than you, but you probably know the answer, of that dog licensing fee, that some of that money is used to pay LAPs for their fee for service, for their the service they provide us. What does the rest of that fee get used for? Is that how we pay for the pet waste bags? And do you know? Do you have?
I'm actually not sure. I know a portion of it goes to labs. I don't know, Karen, can you expand on that?
The rest would just go into general revenue.
So it's not actually designated into this process, I guess. I wonder if there's a way to properly designate the dog license fee into the solid waste piece to help sort of offset, so we know exactly what that gap looks like. I don't know if that's even worthwhile, but Mr. Baggins looking a little confused, so maybe I'm not explaining myself very well.
No, you're explaining it quite adequately. The challenge becomes, to the extent that there's a deficiency, it means the money must be made up someplace else. So what you're really doing is, by doing that analysis, suggesting a additional general revenue demand, because that money would have to be directed solely for one purpose as opposed to broader community purposes.
But we're doing that already, aren't we? We're just not designating it officially?
Well, we are collecting it, but the designation would mean for every dollar that's diverted to go more towards the enhanced program, not the base program that's being presented here, is a dollar that's being lost from general revenue. So that means that dollar has to be made up someplace else.
Yeah, it still does. We still have to pay for all of this dog waste removal. So I guess more to the point is that the cost of the dog licensing isn't covering our costs of providing services for pets in the municipality.
Correct, and I think the approach we would suggest is we try to look at that concurrently or as part of this process to see what that would result in, although we think a complete cost recovery would be probably more than the market would bear.
Yeah, no, I would agree based on the volume. In the Metro parks, the Metro Vancouver parks that are in our community, do they provide the diversion bins, or are they working on a program similar?
Yes, so Metro Vancouver is the only other jurisdiction that has dog waste separated from the garbage. So in that photo, right here, you can see the red toter there. So that's actually designated for dog waste, and they actually use the same private contractor that we used throughout the neighborhood pilot for this.
I haven't noticed those. I spent a lot of time in Derby Reach this summer, but I didn't notice them there. So I guess they're not as attractive as the new ones that we have here. So maybe that's why. And I guess my last question is, in some municipalities, like the city of Langley, for example, and others that I've seen in my travels, they sell advertising on their bins to help offset that cost. Is that something that your team's considering, or no?
Yes, it is something we considered. Staff felt that it wouldn't be as well received by the public, just because obviously, even as Councillor Sparrow suggested, there are receptacles every, not a couple feet, but a couple of meters, or on every corner. So then as you add advertising, it begins to clutter up the street and park aesthetic. So as of right now, we haven't looked into that in any further detail, but we were under the assumption that it wouldn't be something Council or the public would support.
Yeah, I don't disagree about the aesthetic of it for sure, but just wondered if it was a consideration. So thanks for this. This is really, really great.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you. It was informative. So I had a couple questions. One, probably the focus there is on the dog waste. It seems to be the hot topic. So it seems like, based on your answer to the bags, it seems like a great business opportunity for someone to make a killing on the right bag. So anyone in here wants to make the right bag, here's a great opportunity. That can biodegradable bag. What a terrible job that is to open those. But I was wondering about location within the park. So I was thinking of some parks, and one that I'm quite familiar with is the Dale Ball Passive Park up in Brookswood. And when I think of that park and it being a trail where people can walk around, it's about 1.5 kilometers long. And certainly lots of people walk their dogs through there. And because it's also a disc golf course, there's lots of little garbage cans spread throughout at each of the little, I don't know if you call them tee-off boxes or whatever. And they're mostly filled with dog waste. People are putting them in there. And so I guess my question is, and maybe statement and question together, is that I would imagine that if there was one of these multi-use receptacles at the, say, front area where the parking lot is, you might still end up with a lot of dog waste along that walking path, because I think what happens is people, the dogs, they pick up the dog waste, they got it in this bag, and now they have to walk for 1.5 kilometers carrying this bag, and they kind of wonder, they're carrying a bag of dog do. And so then they come along and they see the first little garbage can along the way, and then they just go, they'll just drop it in here instead. And they drop it in. And so I think I'm wondering about, in a place like that, and I'm sure many parks along the way, having these spread throughout the walking trail as opposed to just at the parking lot entrance. However, that might, I guess, as I'm thinking, make it more difficult for vehicles to get in and access it, and would require someone to maybe walk in and grab the bag and walk it back to the truck, which is, of course, labor intensive. But it will, of course, cause some challenges with the collection of the dog waste. I can see people just getting tired of carrying it around and just looking for the first opportunity to drop it off, as opposed to this. So education is going to be important, but I think also just spreading it around in there. Question I have then, as well, is a 5-year rollout seems like a long time. And of course, I'm living in Brookswood, so I look at Brookswood as being 5 years down the road. I'm wondering, was there some consideration of doing it faster, and is the only limitation financial?
Yes, you are correct in that. So we tried to keep costs respectively equal throughout the 5 years, so it was more palatable for council and the public. But absolutely, I mean, staff could roll this out faster if that was something council wanted to see.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing, I guess, some of the, I know you talked about coming up with a strategy of putting an extra fee on dog licenses and picnic shelters and sport tournaments. So I'd be interested to see what is expected to generate revenue on that, and whether there might be a way to look at doing this a little bit faster. I can see certainly, challenges of people in Brookswood are going to pay on an extra dog license for 5 years before they actually see the first receptacle arrive in Brookswood. So I'm just wondering if there might be a way for us to generate this quicker and faster, similar to what we did with the actual garbage cans to all the neighborhood across all of Langley. We did it much quicker. And tied into that, I was just, whether, I know this is slightly different, but on personal dog waste for people in their backyards, they're still dumping it into their own garbage cans because they don't have a dog waste personal thing in front of their residence. So I'm wondering if we should be looking at a dog waste can for residents, individual residents as well. Anyways, thank you.
Your Worship, perhaps I can just ask Tess to share with Council some preliminary numbers that we have crunched in terms of the potential revenue that might be generated if the dog license, for example, was to be increased by, say, a couple of dollars. The projected capital cost of $350,000 with a $2 increase in the dog license would then result in approximately $50,000 reduction of that annual capital expenditure of $350,000 to $300,000 a year. Just to give you an idea of what $2 addition to the dog license might do.
Mm-hmm. Whereas the park rental fees are based on an hourly rate, so we would be working with park staff to approximate out what a potential levy could be that wouldn't impact usership of our park facilities, but possibly also still cover the costs of the excessive amounts of waste that are generated in those spaces. And also, if I could just point out for your other point that you made about the receptacles being placed at the fronts of the parking lots of a park or whatnot. So our program would actually be to eliminate all existing garbage receptacles. We wouldn't have a park where there's currently just a garbage bin and then a multi-stream receptacle close by. For the system to work, as you pointed out, all bins would need to be multi-stream so that people aren't diverting incorrectly in some and then properly sorting in others. So in parks, for example, staff have proposed a ratio of 2 to 1. So for every 2 existing garbage cans, we would replace them with one of these multi-stream receptacles. And that's to cut down on bin costs and also maintenance redundancies, as you mentioned, it being more difficult to get into some parks.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Long?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, the Parks West, actually, with Metro, have invented in the off-lease parks the dog composting. Have you seen that? Yeah. So there is that in existence. You don't have to put it in a bag. In the off-lease area, there's a little thing you push with your foot. The thing opens up and it goes to doggy poo. So, and that's an educational thing that can be put into residential as well, because everyone can, if they have a yard, create a composting place for their pet waste as well. So maybe we could look at a graduated increase in the dog licenses too, to match the other concerns that council has. But I was going to ask, do we have a number? And I think Mr. Savey did give some. Is there like 100,000 dogs or 50,000 dogs, or how much would it be? But I'd be interested to see that come back, because it seems to me that the whole initiative is based primarily around dog waste. So even though, as you mentioned, picnic areas and parks and stuff are going to benefit from the recycling, and they do create some waste, a lot of it seems to be on the dog, right? So that's probably where the cost ought to be borne. So is there going to be some educational aspect to this too, which is included in your operating? Is that right?
I definitely think so. We still have a long way to go, for sure. There needs to be some public education, absolutely, what they're doing at home, and then that would transfer over to public spaces. As you saw from those 2 kind of impactful photos, I mean, recycling is still very important to us. It's also a banned material. It doesn't cost as much to dispose of. That's probably why it's not on the top of the list for conversation tonight. But it is just as important. And like even Councillor Sparrow said, when your kids are wanting looking to recycle their stuff and they can't, they feel guilty about putting their plastic water bottle or paper in the garbage. So we want to provide not only the dog owners with a place to put their dog waste responsibly, but also people with recyclables to do that as well. Some of the numbers, as Mr. Seffi said, so we have 15,000 licenses approximately per year. So if it was $1 at levy added, that would be $15,000 annually, and so forth. So $3, the 45,000.
So we could do some research on other
Absolutely.
jurisdictions too,
Yeah,
because we could be leading the way on this, blazing our own path, but it may be something that would be acceptable throughout Metro, that, okay, you have a dog and you're paying now this graduated
Right.
increase over 5 years to deal with the issue.
And it is a struggle for other municipalities, and that's
Yeah.
why you haven't seen anyone roll it out full scale, is because they're trying to figure out how to deal with the costs of it and how to pay for that.
Well, as usual, Langley's leading the role.
All right, thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. I'm liking the idea of trying to accelerate it, if possible, just because it seems like we're trying to strike a balance between not spending too much money initially, but also then the fines are, going to be keeping accruing, one assumes, as we go along, and if we still have the problem with the pet waste. I did have a couple of questions related to your presentation. So what I'm wondering is, one of the things that I've noted and hasn't been discussed is cigarette butts, and whether that's considered to be just part of the main components of what our waste stream currently is, and if we have to do anything specifically. I just know they're very toxic.
There are private collection companies where you can recycle cigarette butts into different types of materials or items. For our public spaces, it wasn't a dominant stream because, again, the waste audits are done by weight. So in terms of priorities, dog waste and recyclable materials, as in plastics, glass, and paper, would probably be pushed to the forefront over the cigarette butts, but it's definitely something staff could look into. I think City of Vancouver has special bins to dispose of cigarette butts in, not something we've considered as of yet.
Because I believe I've seen somewhere like a standalone unit where people could go and dispose it, but that means also that they have to be inclined that way and nearby, etc. So another question I had was, I just went to an electric vehicle event, and so I'm wondering whether or not, since this is such a green initiative, whether or not we would consider looking into electric vehicles for the purpose, if we have to get some new multi-stream collection vehicles, if that might be something we could consider.
So we are working with our fleet manager, if endorsed by council, to move forward with the full-scale program to look into the procurement of alternate fuel vehicles. They may not be electric, they may be renewable natural gas, we'd see, but definitely that is on our minds for sure.
Okay, and then just my final thought. In looking at this, because it's great, but it's a significant investment, and I did wonder the degree to which we have any type of assessment about what direction Metro might be going overall in terms of some of the reutilization of these materials, like for incineration or biofuel or anything like that that might have come into play with our system.
So, technology will be advancing over the 5-year rollout of the program, and staff will do their due diligence to ensure that we're using the most effective, cost-effective as well disposal options that are available in the region. One thing we didn't mention tonight, but staff have been speaking about, is the Surrey Biofuels facility. So we would hope that once that comes online, getting in talks with them about actually bringing our dog waste there to be converted from waste to energy. So looking into options like that, yes, we are.
I just imagine the poop mobile. Just one final thought in terms of cost recovery. It did seem to me that there was quite a good analysis of the shape, dimensions, and the opening of these different receptacles. And so I realize that I guess there's a balance to be struck between being able to put things in there and not having people, taking things out, which could be a problem. But where I'm trying to go with that is that I wondered if there had been any sense that these would be seen as magnets for our unfortunate littering problem that we can have from time to time, and whether or not somebody might be wanting to monitor at least some of the waste to see if people were taking their household waste and trying to put it into the public receptacles.
But that's already an existing problem that we have with our current waste infrastructure. And so again, like you said, these new multi-stream bins have a reduced hole size, so we're hoping that that helps with the illegal dumping issue. But we also have been working with our bylaws department, so when our staff notice large bags of what looks to be household or business garbage, we actually get our curbside contractor to go through, audit the garbage. If we find any items that pertain addresses or names, we actually get bylaws to follow up with that business or resident to ask why their garbage was in there, similar to the illegal waste strategy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councilor Sparrow?
Just a quick question I forgot to ask. I noticed on the slide that showed the difference garbage. Right there, yeah. So there was different sort of terminology used, and I just wondered if you did sort of look at the difference between, like I find when I see one, which I saw the other day, and it said landfill, I found for me it was harder to put it in the garbage than, like, garbage just sort of didn't really hit home as much as when you think about it actually going to the landfill. So I just wondered, like with West Van having the word landfill versus garbage, if you guys sort of looked at that, or if there was a reason why you chose the wording that you did.
So as much as we want to keep consistency with the region, we also were aiming to keep consistency with our own waste program. So curbside, we've labeled our garbage carts. They've been like that for, the 20 plus years we've had curbside collection. However, I would say that West Van is probably one of the fewer municipalities that actually uses landfill. A lot of them do use garbage. So again, trying to keep consistency with the region.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's good to know that, maybe it's more impactful. So
yeah, I just found it made you think a little bit more. I know it means the same thing, but landfill just made me feel like, oh gosh, it's going to, that's where it's going to sit forever. And I find sometimes I have a hard time.
Right.
Not that I'm a hoarder, but I just feel like sometimes I have a hard time throwing
and I will
something
point out,
out.
too, we're trying not to even rely on the verbiage that's on the bins, just because of, the multiculturalness of Langley and the different languages that are spoken here. We're really hoping that users gravitate towards the symbology used and that they identify that, a paw is dog waste, an apple is food. Yeah. So that way we're not having to produce signage in multiple languages.
For sure. And I found that the design I really liked actually was the visual of the paw, the garbage can, the apple. That it made it very easy to see from a distance, and like you said, the language barrier too. So okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's where iPhones and iPads go. Is the one with the apple?
Yeah.
I thought that's not what that's for.
Yeah.
Councilor Whitmarsh.
Thank you. I had just a thought that and a question with it. Rather than have sort of complete one community at a time within the township, I wondered if there had been put some thought to it, and I've only thought for a few minutes, so I haven't thought of all the implications, but of sort of seeing the entire community benefit at the same rate, and so maybe the 25% of these receptacles are put out across the entire township, and the next year another 25% or so on, and now it's a 4-year process, but everyone's benefiting. I'm seeing the benefit would be that everyone's being educated at the same time across the township, and then everyone's receiving the same benefit at the same time across the township. I'm sure there's implications to that I haven't thought of. Maybe it's more difficult to pick up than to retrieve it, and you have two different types of cans going at the same time maybe. But I'm wondering if there had been thought around that as opposed to just doing a completion of a community before we move on to the next.
Mm-hmm. So we did struggle with that for sure, especially determining the order of the neighborhoods or exactly what you're saying and what ratio do we expand at. Basically, it came down to the fact that there's cost savings to be had when we expand to adjacent communities just due to vehicle routing of the collection vehicles and staff time. If staff are servicing, 20 bins in Walnut Grove and 20 in Aldergrove, they're traveling across the community in order to do that on a daily basis, and so as well as the GHG impacts of that. So again, trying to roll it out so that it's consistent within a community. So especially, we mentioned Willoughby was chosen in 2019 just due to the vastness of the development there. We don't want to have this, different various models of garbage cans and then this multi-stream receptacle. We think it's more impactful to complete the community as a whole and then move on to the next. But it is something, that's still up on the table if that was something council wanted to see.
Okay, good. Thank you. Helpful information.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further questions from council. Thank you very much for your presentation. And we'll now move on to the motion, which is an F1. And it's laid out for council's consideration. Council Sparrow moves it and Council Qualley seconds it. I'm just going to clear the queue. Any discussion on the motion? Council Qualley?
Thank you. So in the motion, it says it's asking staff to bring forward the necessary budget requests for implementation. I wonder if we could have two scenarios presented, one with the 5-year rollout and one with the 3-year rollout, so we could just consider what the financial costs what it might look like to shorten the time period for this. Okay. Can I add that in?
Do we need that as direction to staff, or would you wish that to be an amendment? Just direction?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Yeah, just direction. Yeah, so they've noted it. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on F1. That carries unanimously. Move on to F2. This is Agricultural Land Commission application number 100325, Anderlini, 24334 48 Avenue. Could I have a motion, please, from Council? Council Long, second. Council Qualley. Any discussion on F2? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries with Council Arneson opposed. Move on to F3. This is Agricultural Land Commission application number 100328. It's Garcha, 6842 264th Street. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley and a seconder. Need a second. Councillor Whitmarsh. Discussion on F3. Seeing none, I'll call the question on F3. Okay. That carries with Councillor Arneson opposed. And move on to correspondence for receipt. And that's the we have G1 Langley Blaze Baseball Club. Correspondence part of the package. And this is for receipt. And I would also ask that perhaps we refer this to the budget process. So add that to the motion. So Councillor Long, you wish to move that?
I'll move it, whatever.
Okay, Councillor Qualley moves it. Councillor Sparrow seconds it. I didn't see a nod, so it's all good. It's all good. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question on G1. It's coming, it's coming. There we go, G1. Carries unanimously. Move to H1, and it's minutes from Council Parties Committee and Recreation, Culture, Parks Advisory Committee. Receipt, adopt those and receive. Motion, please. Councillor Arneson, second. Councillor Qualley, discussion on that. See none, I'll call the question on H1. It carries unanimously. Then we have items for prior meetings, and so this is I1, completed applications in the Brookswood Furnished Community Plan. Council Long has requested it to be brought back, so this is a two-part process. We first need a motion to reconsider, so Council Long moves it. Is there a seconder for the reconsideration motion? I see no seconder, so then the motion is not seconded, and we move on. Other business, there is a note from staff that council members confirm availability for the workshop facility by Gordon McIntosh scheduled for November 20th. Please note that change in your agenda, 2017. Now, Mr. Backen, will staff send out a poll council, or if we do, we're missing a few councillors here, so I think just notice that staff will send out something.
We could, Your Worship, a brief discussion, though, might
Okay.
resolve it. We understand from some members of council that may not be present that date's very difficult, and traditionally we don't proceed unless we have a pretty good indication all of council can attend. So if there's anyone else on council that's not available that day, we may wish to postpone this to a later date.
Okay. So I've got Councillor Qualley.
So November 18th is a Saturday?
No, that was a typo. It's the 20th. It's the Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Yeah. Any discussion, or should we just wait for a polling of staff? I think that would be helpful. I mean, the staff could poll council, and just and then we can make a decision. Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, we have tried that. We just
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
getting any responses, so we'll try again. But
Okay, try again. If you don't get any responses, then that means it's a no, I guess. I don't know. We have to make it clear.
Well, should we
Change. Do you want to do a show of hands? Just who can make
vote now? I guess?
the 20th? We can do that. I'm quite happy to do that. Unless if council wishes, we can just do a show of hands. For who does November 20th not work? Not work. You can do it. Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yes.
You're good? Councillor Long? Sparrow?
No.
Qualley can't. Sparrow can.
Well, if there is going to be a full council,
Yeah. we'll,
I'm available, but if there isn't a full council, I don't know.
yeah. So Council Qualley can't, and so we'll check with others and go from there. Okay, so you got information you need? Thank you. There is one item of other business that I've added, but I want to do that last. So if there's any other business before that, Councillor Sparrow.
Yes, I just wanted to make a mention to staff and to the rest of council. I was at UBCM this last week, and in the trade show, the company Open North, who is does our citizen budget, does our online budgeting simulator tool that we have for the township. We've been doing now for several years. So I got very excited when I saw their booth and went up to talk to them. And I wanted to share this with staff, to go back to staff. He had so many amazing things to say about us at the township, and said that we are leaders across all of Canada when it comes to using this program and our interactive budget simulator, and the work that staff has done, and this company in providing an interactive way for our citizens to get involved in our budgeting process. And he says he uses us as an example when he goes across Canada to talk about other communities about the Township of Langley, and calls us innovators, and says amazing things, and wanted me to stay at his booth and talk to people the whole day because I was so excited about it and he was so excited about it. But I just wanted to pass that along and say to staff what great things he had to say, and how exciting it is to hear someone who's really passionate about engagement and the work he does say such amazing things about the township, and how we have led the way for other communities, and they are definitely using us as examples. So I just wanted to pass that along to council, who maybe couldn't attend, and let our staff know a big pat on their back for the work they do, and being leaders in this field. So thank you.
Thank you. Another way that the Township of Langley shows that we are ahead in many things. Okay, so the next, any other business? Okay, seeing none. So the next item would be receipt of item 8. Councillor Qualley, did you wish to?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, this is there. Declare a conflict. Okay. Okay, so the motion I would entertain is the receipt of item 8 from the September 28th distribution. It's a memo from corporate administration regarding the 2017 farm tour catering. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Sparrow, second. Councillor Whitmarsh. Any discussion on receipt? Push your button. Okay, there you go. Councillor Arneson? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In receipt, does that mean that we are just strictly receiving it for the purpose of our own information, and then at a future time able to discuss the actual contents? Is that the nature of our receipt?
Mr. Backen, I know there's more to this than that. Maybe you can provide some explanation.
Your Worship, the background context is that the council has the opportunity at this point to discuss it if they wish to comment or provide further direction. I understand a further notice of motion may be forthcoming that would also provide that opportunity. At this point, the purpose of the memo is twofold, is to make council aware of the matter, and as well then if council wishes to discuss or have any direction to start that process now, or again continue it at a later date.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Just because if there is a notice of motion, or if there are other amendments to be made, then I just wanted to make sure that there would be an opportunity to do that in the future.
That there would be. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Push your button, please. Okay, if you could push your button, I can maybe help.
Can I have clarification
So
of a notice of motion?
this morning, Councillor Richter has forwarded a notice of motion to the clerk for inclusion in the October 23rd agenda. So that's what's being referred to. So I'm sorry that hasn't come to council yet, because it's just been sent to staff, I believe, today.
That's correct, Your Worship. Yeah. And a quick look suggests it's very similar, if not identical, to the 7 points raised at the an item on the distribution list from today. Which number was, do you recall? We think it's number 7 of today's distribution list.
Okay. Okay, great, thanks. So with that, I'll call the question on receipt. That would be J2? Or sorry, I2. That's items from prior meetings, I. So that's, I put this under other business, so it should be J. Okay.
So, Your Worship, just to repeat that, J1 was the workshop, J2 was the trade show feedback, so this would then be J3.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and it carries unanimously. Okay, any other business? Motion to terminate? Councillor Arneson moves termination. Councillor Sparrow seconds. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.